The Vex warships emerged from hyperspace like a storm of obsidian knives, their angular forms blotting out the stars above yet another doomed world. This was Centaurid Prime, home to over 8 billion sentients, a prosperous world known throughout the galaxy for its universities and art. By tomorrow, it would be just another conquered planet in the expanding Vex Empire. Admiral Krill observed the blue-green world from the command deck of the Asterisk, Inevitable Dominion Asterisk. In his centuries leading the Vex Armada, he had overseen the subjugation of 37 species across 112 worlds. Not once had his forces needed to fire more than warning shots. Open communications, Krill ordered, his voice calm as always. The Vex reputation preceded them. Fear was their most potent weapon. The planetary governor appeared on screen, a tall, four-armed Centaurian whose skin had paled to a sickly yellow. Vex Empire, we recognize your sovereignty and surrender unconditionally. Our defensive systems are powered down. Your landing parties will meet no resistance. Krill nodded, satisfied. Wise choice. The terms are standard. 20% of all natural resources, implementation of Vex governance systems, and mandatory education in Vex language and customs. Comply, and your people will prosper under our protection. The transmission ended, and Krill turned to his second-in-command. Another bloodless conquest, as it should be. Commander Vox, younger and more ambitious than her superior, frowned. Is almost disappointing. The species of this galaxy have no spine. Be grateful, Krill replied. The Empire expands most efficiently this way. Little did they know that their next target would break this perfect record. Earth was a relatively isolated planet, its inhabitants having only recently developed faster than light travel. The humans had established a handful of colonies but remained largely unknown to the wider galactic community. Their first contact with alien species had been peaceful, trade agreements with the Centaurians and cultural exchanges with the philosophical Ardani. They had heard rumors of the Vex, of course. Stories of a conquering race that never needed to fire a shot. Most humans dismissed these tales as exaggerations. Captain James Miller of the Earth Defense Force certainly didn't believe them. As he stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station Alpha, watching the first reports of Vex ships approaching the solar system, he felt not fear but indignation. They expect us to just roll over, he asked Admiral Patel, who stood beside him reviewing tactical data. That's what everyone else does, apparently, Patel replied. The Centaurians sent word just before their communications went dark. They surrendered immediately. Miller shook his head. That's not going to happen here. The Earth Defense Council convened an emergency meeting within the hour. Representatives from all nations gathered virtually while military leaders assembled in person at EDF headquarters in Geneva. The Vex fleet will reach Earth orbit in 48 hours, General Thompson announced, projecting the invasion trajectory. Their ships outnumber ours 10-1, and based on scans, their technology appears to be at least a century ahead of our most advanced systems. President Rivera of the United Earth government leaned forward. And they expect surrender? That's their pattern, Thompson confirmed. No species has resisted them in over 300 years. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Then, remarkably, laughter, soft at first, then spreading across the chamber. Well, said Rivera with a wry smile, they haven't met humans before, have they? Admiral Krill was confused. The human response was not following protocol. Could you repeat that? He asked, his voice betraying a rare note of uncertainty. The human on the screen, the one called Rivera, smiled. I said no, Admiral. Earth does not recognize your authority and will not surrender. Krill blinked his 4 eyes in succession, a sign of agitation. Perhaps I wasn't clear. We have 53 warships in your orbit. Your entire fleet consists of 16 vessels of significantly inferior capability. We counted, Rivera replied. Our answer remains the same. As the transmission ended, Krill turned to Commander Vox. Prepare a demonstration. Target one of their orbital platforms. Minimal casualties. Maximum visibility. With pleasure, Admiral. The Vex flagship fired a single beam at an unoccupied research station. The structure detonated spectacularly, debris raining through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. The humans' response came minutes later, not in the form of a communication, but an attack. 3 small vessels, previously hidden behind Earth's moon, launched a barrage of missiles at the Vex fleet's rear guard. 2 Vex ships suffered damage before their shields fully engaged. Krill was stunned. They attacked. After our warning? The next 24 hours unfolded unlike any conflict in Krill's long career. The humans did not fight conventionally. They used guerrilla tactics, striking in unpredictable patterns, sacrificing ships to damage Vex vessels, and deploying experimental weapons that occasionally penetrated Vex defenses. When ground forces landed, expecting immediate capitulation from local authorities, they instead met armed resistance and booby-trapped facilities. Civilian populations have been evacuated from landing zones, replaced by soldiers willing to die rather than live under Vex rule. After 3 days of unexpected losses, Krill requested reinforcements, something he had never done before. In his report to the Vex High Command, he wrote, "The humans possess inferior technology, but compensate with tactical innovation and an irrational willingness to sacrifice themselves. They'd appear to value their independence above their individual lives." 2 weeks later, with the conflict still raging and Vex casualties mounting, Krill received unprecedented orders: negotiate terms. The peace conference took place on neutral ground, an Ardani diplomatic vessel in orbit between Earth and Mars. Captain Miller represented Earth's military, alongside President Rivera and a small delegation. "You fought well," Krill acknowledged, his posture less imperious than during their first communication. "Better than any species we have encountered." "We weren't fighting well," Miller corrected. "We were fighting for our home." The resulting treaty was the first of its kind in Vex history. Earth would remain independent, with humans free to govern themselves. In exchange, they would allow limited Vex trade presence and share certain technologies. As the Vex fleet departed the solar system, Commander Vox approached Admiral Krill privately. "This sets a dangerous precedent. Other worlds will hear of this." Krill watched Earth receding on the view screen. "Perhaps," he replied thoughtfully, "but I suspect the humans are unique. There's something in their nature, a stubborn defiance, that makes them different." Should we be concerned? Krill considered this. Possibly. Or perhaps we've found something even more valuable than another conquered world. He turned from the view screen. "We've found worthy adversaries and potential allies. The Vex would return to Earth someday, not as conquerors, but as equals. The galaxy would never be the same."